Oh yeah, I can see.
So, shall I keep the camera that way so that folks can come
So
stand here?
maybe let me start.
Okay. After that.
And then when we start that session,
Okay.
then if you could kindly move. So I am not in the picture.
Okay.
So then I can just ask people to come.
Okay.
And then where you are standing is really where I think that the camera should be. Is that okay?
Oh, the camera should be here and then they can stand there?
No, you stand there. The camera can just point out to you.
Okay, perfect.
And then at the end of that, we can shift it again.
Okay. This is already showing all that. Oh yeah.
Okay, shall we start? I'm just going to do a very short puja of Sri Dakshinamurti, and then we will get started. Let me see how it compares. This is just temporary. I want to show all the limbs of Dakshinamurti, and then we can. Om Mama Upatta Samasta Duritakshaya Dvara Shri Parameshwara Prithiyartham Vidya Siddhyartham Cha Aham Sri Dakshinamurti Pujam Karishye. Om Namo Bhagavate Dakshinamurtaye Mahyam Medham Pragyam Prayachya Swaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Dakshinamurtaye Mahyam Medham Pragyam Prayachya Swaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Dakshinamurtaye Mahyam Medham Pragyam Prayachya Swaha. So I welcome you to this new class. And so I think what we will do today is just some housekeeping first, and then what we will do is perhaps get to two of the three things, maybe even one of the three things. One being the form of Dakshinamurti and what it represents. And it was interesting, I was just looking through my notes from Swami Dayanandji in the year 2000, when actually I think the Dakshinamurti was installed at the Sailorsburg, and he spent a lot of time discussing it and describing it. So I think I have some of the notes, otherwise I have it in my mind. So I will go through that. Then we will also go through the dhyana shlokas and perhaps go through the meaning of the dhyana shlokas. And then I don't think we'll have time to really spend much time on the actual Dakshinamurti Stotram itself, so that we will have to do for next week. But I think that those of you that have been studying for a while know this, that the learning process, we were just discussing it in both the Mandukya class and the Bhagavad Gita class, that the learning process really has 3 steps to it. And so the first step is just the very basic fundamental form of what it is that you're learning, whether it's a language or a skill. You have to know you have to have a goal of what it is. And in some ways, the rupam of Dakshinamurti will give us that. And so we will go over that today. Then the next thing is that you devote your mind to it. And so this is what we call dhyanam. We just went through this in the Mandukya class, that Brahman, the desired object, is both dhyeya Brahman as well as jnaya Brahman. So dhyeya Brahman means that the vastu is something that you have to appreciate and become devoted to and love it. And if you're not able to do it, then you need some more time to do so. You cannot force it. It's kind of like, it's just very much like the Indian arranged marriage. The very first time you don't love it, but slowly as you grow with the spouse, hopefully, we're not sure, the love should grow. In fact, it's very interesting that when the child is born, even the mother thinks of it as something very strange. It comes out of her own body and is full of blood and so on and so forth, and is crying. And so the love takes a little while too, but when you get accustomed to it, then the love grows. So learning a new discipline is very much like that. First you have to know what it is that I'm doing. Who is Dakshinamurti, which we will go over in a minute, sometime. Who is Dakshinamurti? What does it represent? What does that mean for me? And then hopefully you become more aware of the qualities of Dakshinamurti. And the more you know about the qualities, then the better appreciation you have about the person. So that's the second one, which represents the dhyana shlokas, which we will, the 6 of them that we will study today, including the meaning. And then comes the actual, the stotram itself, the stuti, the very praise of Dakshinamurti, which reveals the value, the form, the very importance of it in great detail that we will start to study. So this is what we do. I'm very happy that so many of you have enrolled for this class. And I'm also thinking that based on the experience that we had of teaching this Dakshinamurti Stotram 2 years ago, where we went into a lot of detail using the Manasa Ullasa, which I'll describe all the texts and so on. So we decided that we were going to change the methodology a little bit and speed it up. And now that I also have taught this 2 or 3 times, some of the concepts from it are more fluid in my mind. And so I don't have to really resort to some of the backdrop of the Manasa Ullasa. I can condense it into conceptual form, and that will speed things up. And hopefully this will communicate things better. So my goal is actually to teach this whole course. Normally it would take many years, but I find that after a while the enthusiasm wanes. And so it will be nice to have a concentrated dose in about 1 year's time. So approximately about 40 or so classes. And so that's the goal. So the agenda for today will be as follows. I was just thinking about it today. I think that we would start with an introduction to each one of you. And I was just talking about to Chandra that I think instead of simply having an audio recording, we will turn the camera in a side and have each one of you just come up and just briefly introduce yourself. And so I would say keep it to less than a minute, and say the following: your name and what you do. If you are just not doing anything, that's fine too. That's also doing something. And perhaps just a few sentences on how long you've been, what's your exposure to. If you're new, just say you're new. If you've been studying for a while, then you can also be saying that I'm studying for a while. And so if we with that. So the first part of the agenda will be a video introduction. And also for many of the people who are not here, I think it'll be nice for them to see. Then the second thing that we will do is talk about the texts in more detail that we have done. I've given you an introduction to it, but let me tell you about what it is. And I also have the same spreadsheet that I sent to you, and I will pass it on so you can complete it. And so then by that time, we will have a better idea of who wants what book, after you've had an idea about the book itself. So I won't pass this on until that description is done. And so we will do that. That will be the second thing. And so then we will begin the class with a description of the form of Dakshinamurti. And hopefully we'll have enough time to discuss the dhyana slokas that you already have a copy of, and I think you already have the meaning, but I'll go over that in a little bit more detail. Each of the dhyana slokas can take several classes. And again, in terms of my desire to be relatively brief, I'll be to the point and speed it up a little bit so that you have an idea of what the content of dhyana shlokas are. And then by that time, then we will assess how much time is left, and then go into the main text if time still permits. And what I would say is that between now and to the point where we actually go to the third part, which is the Dakshinamurti Stotram itself, we'll make it interactive. So if you have any questions, don't wait for me to finish, and just ask it as we go along. Then once the teaching starts, as you know very well, what is recommended is that the questions are held until the end of the class, just so that the process of building a vision is not interrupted. And so that we will do later on. But for these two sessions, text, discussion about what to buy, what not to get, of course the introduction, there's no need for questions on that. And then the dhyana shlokas also, you kindly please ask questions as we go along, and then we will go to that. So in summary, the agenda will be introductions, a description of the text, dhyana shlokas, and if there's any time left, going into the Dakshinamurti Stotram itself. And from next week on, we will practice the enunciation of the shloka. I think many of you already know it, but it will be good to pronounce it very accurately. This is a very important thing for us to do. So we will start next time, including the opening prayers, the ending prayers. So we will do all of that next time. So with that, Chandra, if we can start with if I can have Shaula, you can start. So we'll just go just this column all the way at the end, and then back towards the front. And so just a brief introduction to yourself. Come this way.
Hi, my name is Chaula Joshi, and I am a student of Vedanta with Vijayji for a number of years now. And this is my third time on Dakshinamurti Stotram. I hope I get it now. That's about it.
Hari Om, everyone. My name is Zarina Kaji, and I have been studying Vedanta with Vijayji for a few years as well. And I wish you all a very good, my very best wishes to you as we begin this study together. It is one of the most relevant texts, and even though I have studied it before, I always look forward to studying more and more of it. I wish that study of Vedanta brings as much peace and contentment into your lives as it has in mine. Thank you.
My name is H.K. Narayan. I've been studying with Vijayji for the last 5-6 years. Studied various texts like Taittiriya, Kathopanishad, partly Bhagavad Gita. What I do, I'm a babysitter now. I'm taking care of my grandchildren. Thank you.
Namaste, my name is Kumud Singha. I've been a student of Vedanta for the last 30 years. I always wanted to study this text. I have never studied it before. And I'm also teaching Sanskritam to beginners and advanced folks. So if anyone is interested, let me know. Thanks.
What we could do is to have people already be ready to come, so we don't wait much in between, yes.
Hi, my name is Sudha Tomar. I've been coming in Vedanta classes for last 4 years, but every class is new for me. In every class I learn something, so fairly new.
Namaste, my name is Ela Joshi, and I've been studying with Vijayji for more than 8 years now, and this will be the second time I'll be doing Dakshinamurti Stotram, and I'm really excited to learn it, and I hope you all enjoy it too. Thank you.
Namaste, my name is Suren Bhargava, and I have been studying with Vijayji for over 7 years, and as what Chala said, this is the third time we are taking the Dakshinamurti Stotram, and it is very important and critical, so I hope all of you enjoy and take advantage of that. Namaste.
My name is Bharat Dave. I'm attending Guruji's class in the last few years, and I'm a retired engineer spending time with my grandkids.
Hi, Namaste. I'm Kalpana Dave. I've been studying with Guruji for almost 7-8 years. I've been fortunate to study Dakshinamurti Stotram before also, and I'm really looking forward to studying it again and getting more depth out of it. Thank you.
Namaste. My name is Sujata Dave, and I have been studying with Guruji for about 9 to 10 years now, and fortunate to be exposed to several different texts of Vedanta, which I didn't even know existed. So thank you very much.
Hi, Namaste. My name is Arvind Taylor. I have been learning maybe less than a year, but now I found out my source because I do have some background since my student life, but now this will help me Manan and Nididhyasana hopefully.
Hello, my name is Monica Larenas, and I've been studying Vedanta more consistently in the last couple years. And I was introduced through my teacher, Ramanand Patel, who I study yoga with, and have been fortunate to also go to the Gurukulam a couple times and study there a little bit.
Namaste. My name is Vita Skoplikov. I've been studying with Vijayji for a number of years, different classes, and I'm very happy to study Dakshinamurti Stotram for the first time. Thank you.
Namaste, my name is Shobha Lal, and I've been studying with Guruji for the past couple of years, like 2 or 3 years, and we just completed Panchadashi, and I was really excited when I learned the course. Now I am doing Tattva Bodha on my own through his past recordings, and I'm also going to start with Dakshinamurti.
I'm Subhash Jain. I've been coming for quite some time because time is immaterial, whether it is 1 year or 5 years. The object is only learning and getting the knowledge. So that is how it is going on from one day to another day, from 1 week to another week. That's it.
Namaste all, I'm Krishna and I work as a mechanical engineer for a company, Lam Research in Fremont, and I've been attending Guruji's classes for the past 4 years, I think. And actually this Dakshinamurti Stotram is the one that actually got me into the thinking of Vedanta when Swami TV visited a few years ago with a few classes, and then that really got my eyes open. And then from then on I've been attending Guruji's classes, so I thoroughly enjoy them. Thank you.
Hello, namaste. My name is Larry Lopez, and I'm relatively still new student. I was exposed and introduced to VJ through my yoga teacher, Ramana Patel, and I'm coming from San Francisco, and I'm very grateful to be here. Thank you.
Namaskar. My name is Akhil Garg. Unfortunately, I've not been in touch with Vijay Bhai earlier. This is my first visit. I've been studying Vedanta for many years and I have some understanding of it. That's all I'll say at this time. Thank you.
Namaste, my name is Ashish Asthana. I'm taking a bit of a break from my professional career, and I'm fortunate that many of the questions I've been thinking about and collecting books about now have a form that I can relate to through your classes. Thank you very much, appreciate it. I've been through Panchadashi and a little bit of the Mandukya Upanishad with you. I'm looking forward to this class. Thank you.
Namaste, I'm Suvarna Banjara, pretty new to the classes, and it's like about a couple of years we have been here, and I am new to the whole thing as such, and I say I'm still a kinder, but I'm enjoying it. I feel Guruji is giving us a path to think on your own, apart from the day-to-day life. Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste, I'm Bhaskar Banjara, and we are here in the class since 3 years, Mandukya Upanishad and Panchadashi, and we are really learning a lot. Thank you.
Namaste, my name is Ramanand Patel. I've been studying Vedanta for a very long time, last 3 years with Guruji here, and I teach yoga also. Thank you.
My name is Andrea Graciosi, and I've been studying Vedanta with VJG for a few years, and I was also introduced by my yoga teacher, Ramananda.
Hari Om, my name is Milan Tanawala. I've been a student of Bhagavad Gita with Chinmaya Mission for about 4 or 5 years. But this is my first time with Vijayji, so I'm looking forward to learning more through this class. Thank you.
Namaste, my name is Ganapati Swami. I retired out of my engineering life and now I'm doing some part-time insurance business and all that. In the last 7 or 8 years I've been learning Sanskrit and also self-studying, I should say, with Vedanta and so on, listening to some live lectures such as yours as well as on the YouTube and so on. So I'm getting initiated into this and I look forward to learning more here in Dakshinamurti Stotram, which also I have done some self-study on that. So I'm looking forward to learning from all of you here. Thank you.
Namaste Guruji. Namaste everyone. My name is Shankar Narasimhan. I've been with Guruji since the early 2000s, and then I stopped coming for a little while due to the change in day of the classes from Sunday to Saturday. And now I'm coming back for the Tuesday class for the last few years, and this is my second time with Dakshinamurti. So thank you so much.
Namaste everybody. My name is Sulekha Chaudhary. I have been with this class long time ago, and then we got connected again. About a year ago I completed Panchadashi and now I'll be a regular student. I'm looking forward to this new class. This will be first time for me, and it's a really lot of to learn and to be in the group, in the class with Vijay's live talking. It encourages me to come here every day. I don't miss any class. By profession, I am a scientist. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate that
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh, Chandra, yes.
Namaste everybody, my name is Chandrasekhar Dunab. I am an investment advisor with Merrill Lynch. I started with Guruji in April of 2017. From the first class, I got hooked. I mean, I've never been exposed to Vedanta before that, so it was something very unique and very knowledgeable to me. So I've been lapping it up. I go to a lot of classes, and I know a lot more now than I used to about 2 years ago. So this is the first time I'm doing, obviously, Dakshinamurti Stotram, and looking forward to it. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. I was just going to say that I'm very fortunate that to have students that don't miss a class without some real reason. Maybe you may feel that you're tired and therefore, but you never tell me that. No, I really mean it. I think so. I'm very happy that, excuse me for a second. I'm very happy that if you miss a class, it is because you are traveling or somebody is visiting you. Or let's not talk about sickness. If you're sick, don't miss the class. Just come in here anyway. Has to be a real reason, and I think that most people really are that way, very sincere. So it is really of my fortune to have students like this. We are not casual. We are dedicated, and that's what it takes. The teaching is simply a method for you to find the real path in your life and then to stick to it despite problems that occur, and only then you can really start making progress. So I find myself very fortunate to be involved with students of that type. So anyway, thank you for your introductions. For those of you that are not here, what I would very much like to ask you to do is to send me a quick bio version of this and just say, what you do, because I may not know all of you, and it'll be very nice for us to know. I think that I've given you the names of everyone in the class on an email, but generally I would just do a BCC, only because just to make sure that there's not a lot of traffic going back and forth in terms of responses and so on. But from now, but if you want to get a whole list of people to talk to or to communicate with you, you already have that. So there's no secret there. Okay, so textbooks. And in fact, before talking about the textbook, what I would say is, in fact, let's just discuss that a little bit. I think that the class would be most effective if you create a kind of a notebook for yourself. And this is something which is possible to do in Dakshinamurti Stotram, which may not be possible in larger texts like Taittiriya, Kathopanishad, and Bhagavad Gita for sure. It is a very long text. But I think one of the advantages that we have with the short 10 verses, even though they are very profound and very cryptic, but one of the advantages we have is there's only 10. So let me throw a challenge at you, and something that you may want to do. You don't have to, but I'm just telling you from the experience of my own learning and teaching and so on, that if you took each verse as a separate section and you really master it as much as possible. And the way to do that, I think, first of all, would be to take notes if you want to. I always do. I find writing is a very beautiful way for us to absorb the teaching. So take notes. And for another reason, take notes. I would very much like you invite you to do the following. At the end of each verse, make a synopsis of what the basic things is that you learned. And then we would have talked about it as part of the notes. So you just have to consult your own notes. You don't have to reread it, anything. You don't have to listen to the lectures all over again. But it would be very nice for you to, and perhaps we can go over this form of this, almost like an essay, that this is what the first verse is saying, and these are the things that it is pointing out. Whether you completely get it or not is not as important, but just the very process of summarizing and distilling the basic ideas of a verse will be a great deal of benefit to you. And I think it shouldn't take you more than an hour or two, really. It doesn't have to be, and if you want to just type it and so on, if you want to send it to me for comments, I will be glad to do that. It's not grading or anything like that. I may not be able to have the time to read each one of the 45. I think we have about 45, 46 people in the class. I may not have time to do so. But I think the very attempt on your part to do that will be a very good learning experience for you. So I would very much encourage you to kindly do that. And the reason I am saying that just before talking about the texts is thus follows. We are really not going to follow any text that has a commentary on the Dakshinamurti Stotram. The reason is that really the only commentary which is excellent is Sri Sureshwacharya's Manasa Ullasa. There's only two of them. There is a book here which I'll describe that in a minute. So one is the Sureshwacharya's Manasa Ullasa, and the other one is a composition called Tattva Sudha by Swayam Prakasha Yati. There's a person called Swayam Prakasha Yati. So he has written a beautiful commentary in Sanskrit called Tattva Sudha. So if I just want to talk about this at this point, there is a book here which I didn't send you the information on. So this is called I'm starting with a more difficult one now, and then we'll go into the other ones in a minute. So this should be called Book D. And so the Book D is this book which is published by the Mysore University. It's available. It is available. And one of our students in the Mandukya class, Inez from Israel, he goes to Mysore every year for a yoga session for 2-3 months. So he brought a new book for me because mine was sort of getting torn a long time ago. And so this is a book which is only in Sanskrit. So you cannot, there may be translations available. I haven't looked into it, but I actually studied it in Sanskrit. And if you are interested. So what I would say is this. I'm not, as I said before, I'm not going to follow a standard text from which the teaching will take place. So you don't really need any text whatsoever. But I offer it to you that if you want to get into more depth, you can go to any one of the texts. This is one of them. Supposing you want to, you are a scholar of Sanskritam, and you want to really go into both of them. The Tattva Sudha also is a very beautiful text, much shorter than the Manasa Ullasa. But this one has both of them. Okay? So I'm just going to show this to the camera. So this is the one from Mysore University. So this is one of the texts. Then, so
Tattva Sudha also is completely in Sanskrit?
Also completely in
Do you have
Sanskrit.
the team a graduate?
Yes,
from high
yes.
school? Oh, that is this.
Yeah, that is this. It has it here. Yeah. Yeah. And I believe, if my memory serves me right, Swami Viditatmananda had given some classes. I don't think he has come out with a book, but he had given some classes at the ashram based on Tattva Sudha. Somehow my memory, I'm not 100% certain of that, but you can check on that. And so the Tattva Sudha would be a kind of like a cross-check or what, and so every author has the same ideas, but given in some other different examples and different way of doing it. So it adds another dimension to it, which is very useful. This is a lifelong study. I think you can do this. It is such a beautiful book, such a profound book, that you can get an introduction to it now. Next time you do it in a different language with a different author. Like that you can do. So this is one book. Now, Swami Tattvavidananda ji, as I think some of you had already. Yes, question.
I had a question on your last book which you referred to all our friends here, that if they can find a reference of somebody who has translated in English.
That's a very good point. Thank you for, I must say that Dakshinamurti Stotram is highly commented on. So it's not a rare book or anything like that. And I personally think, as I mentioned that to you in a minute, I really got a lot out of the Hindi book, which I will describe it in more detail in a minute. But I think if you can find a book in a vernacular language, Indian vernacular language, I would much prefer it to English for the following reason. For Hindi, our vocabulary is the same. Adhyatma Vidya in Sanskritam, Adhyatma Vidya in English. The grammar is simpler. Where I have now become a great devotee of Swami Maheshananji is because, first of all, his vision is the same as Swami Dayananda. And I've been studying Vedanta for 35 years, and I can tell that. It's the same. There's very little, there's no difference whatsoever. But for me, reading Swami Maheshananji's books in Hindi is much more effective for the following reason. When I read Swami Dayanandaji's books, well, Swami Dayanandaji, of course, he doesn't know any vernacular language other than Tamil, which I don't know. And he has not been writing a lot in Tamil. He writes it all in English. And so therefore he translates that into English. But if I read a Sanskrit book at the most, and this is up to about 7-8 years ago, when I used to read everything in Sanskrit, I would be able to read maybe 2 or 3 pages a day. Because, my Sanskrit is not as though I'm a big scholar or anything. I know enough about it to be able to parse the language, study it, and so on. But the speed was such because of the grammar that I will only be able to read about 2 or 3 pages. With Swami Maheshananji, I can do it 5 to 10 times more. I can read 10 to 20 pages a day with the same vocabulary as Sanskrit, but in an easier grammar. So to, I think, your point, if you can research whatever language you are in, if you are English speaking, then of course you don't have that direction to go to. But if you are from India, and if you can find, and they're all there, it's a matter of finding. Sometimes you have to go to a library to get that, make that as one of your objectives to do. Okay, so then I would say that this book by Swami Tattvavidananda, which he published, I think about 12-15 years ago, is a good one, where he gives his own ideas. The introduction also is excellent. So it is not the translation of the verses, that is rather not that difficult to do, they're all the same. But it is the commentary that really distinguishes one from the other. This book does not go on Manasa Ullasa. So this is simply his own commentary on it. But it will be something that you should get if you can possibly get. And we have enough copies of it. We have 23 copies. We just ordered 15 more, 8 we had here. So this you can get, not sure of the price, I think it's about $10 or so. It says $8.50 here, maybe it has gone up a little bit, so it's about $10 or so. So I think that we can get this. So this is Exhibit A, Book A that we talked about. Then this is without the Manasa Ullasa. Now the course that we studied, that many of you referred to 2 years ago, was really the Manasa Ullasa. So very much like the Mandukya Karika that we are studying, it is really Karika that we are studying. Mandukya is just a 5% of the total, and so from now on, in fact, we are not going to, Mandukya is done. Now we have 2 years worth of Karika to study. Similarly here also, the main thing is not just the cryptiness of the Dakshinamurti Stotram, but who comments on it and how they explain ideas to you. And here Sureshwaracharya, who was one of the 4 direct disciples, of course he had many direct disciples, but 4 of them were just absolutely phenomenal. Hastamalakacharya, Totakacharya, and Sureshwaracharya, and I forget the fourth one. So these 4 were absolutely phenomenal. Sureshwaracharya has written Manasa Ullasa, which is considered to be the gold standard of an explanation. So when it comes to Manasa Ullasa, there a very good book on the Sanskrit of the Manasa Ullasa. So I think there are altogether, I don't know, 300 or 400 verses of Manasa Ullasa. And the English translation of that was done by Sri Alladi Mahadeva Shastri. This also is published, I believe, by Samata Books in Madras. And I think, Shankar, your wife had gotten this for us, I remember, right? I think so. So this is available. So this one has both the Devanagari text as well as the English translation for it. Okay? So this is the book that if you want to get Manasa Ullasa, and I would recommend that you should really at least do that. Now, if you do not have that, this book is the same as this book, minus the Devanagari text. So this book is available from Amazon, and we had ordered that, but in the meantime, Sandhya had actually gotten us a lot of extra books, so we actually didn't need them. So I already have 8 books of this already available, and I would recommend that if you don't need or even if you have access to you can actually easily get the Sanskritam for it from someplace else. But this is the same commentary, by the way. It's not any different. It's exactly the same copy. So this one you can get, and I think this is not that expensive. Also, it's like $7-8 or something like that. So this is then book B/2, in the sense that it is the same thing as this, but it does not have the Devanagari text in it. So this is number that. Then comes the book C, which was my main motivation for learning and teaching. When I got to Swami Meshananji's book on Hindi, this one, Manasa Ullasa, that made a big difference to me for the same reason that I was mentioning earlier, that his vision is the same, his explanations are beautiful, His command of Sanskrit language is excellent, and it is in Hindi. And so for those of you that know Hindi, I would very much recommend that if you want to study Manasa Ullasa, you study this. I have to say that when I teach, it will be a compilation of this book. So you will get the essence of this book automatically, because that's what I would attempt to teach. But if you want to really have more detail to supplement the classes, because I will, as I mentioned, I will have maybe time to have 4 classes for each of the verses. But if you want to study the Manasa Ullasa in Hindi, or in English for that matter, but mind you, these don't have the commentaries. This is simply the translation of the verses. A big difference. This is not an alternative. This is just, there's no commentary here. Okay? But if you wanted to have a commentary, then unfortunately we do not have an English version of that. You'll have to depend on my understanding and how I teach and so on and so forth. I almost a couple of times thought that maybe I should translate it, but I don't have the time. I started to make a book by Swami Viditatmananda ji. This was Kaivalya Upanishad about 10 years back, and I was very enthused. I said, oh, this is so beautiful. Not again. It took me 2.5 years, or 80% of my time. And Swamiji was so particular. Everything had to be absolutely, and I was too. It's too much time. I don't have time to write. So I can't do that, but speaking is a lot easier. So anyway, so this is book C that that you can talk about. And then of course excuse me for just a second, and then the book D is this one that has Tattva Sudha. So I would conclude that by saying, sorry, just for one more second, is that if you're looking for commentaries in your own language, then kindly look for it. And they are available. They are available. But then it depends on the quality of the commentator. I got lucky because Swami Maheshananji, I think, is an excellent commentator. He reveals and unfolds the true meaning of this in beautiful terms, and also has the same language as me. This is why I've been just studying Swami Maheshananji for the last 7-8 years. He has got about 70 books, and I think I've read every one of them, and several of them many, many times. This Manasa Ullasa, I think I've read at least 3 times. And so if you can find something like that, that would be terrific. Sorry, you had your hand up.
So Manasa Ullasa, is that a person or is it a text?
It's a text.
So who wrote that?
I'm sorry?
Who wrote that? I mean,
Sureshwacharya.
So that is Sureshwacharya, okay.
Yeah, the direct disciple of the Guruji, of Adi Shankara.
So Vijayji is not a text, it's a bhashyam, right?
Okay.
It's actually not even a bhashyam. It's not even a bhashyam. See, bhashya will be, first of all...
Then what is the difference between a bhashyam and a karika and a ullasa?
Okay, that's a good thing that you asked. Okay. First of all, the word bhashya is only reserved for commentary by Swami Shankara. No other commentaries. It is so highly regarded. And it's interesting why it's called bhashya. Bhashya means speaking. But what is considered is, and I can tell you my own understanding, the book talks to you as though there is a real teacher sitting there and ahead of you. That's why it is called bhashya. Otherwise it would be called tika or something. Okay, so that's bhashya. Then comes karika. There is only one karika in all of Vedanta, which is Gaudapada's karika. There is no other karika. There is a Sankhya karika, which is not the same as the Advaita Vedanta. So there are 2 karikas, but for our sampradaya, there's only one karika, it's unique. And what it is not It is an independent book that doesn't really conform to the Mandukya exactly, word for word. A Bhashya has to conform to the Upanishads word for word. So the Upanishad says something, then you have to explain exactly what it is. You cannot bring in some new ideas of your own. You simply have to expand it. But in a Karika, Gaudapada, who is the Shankara's second guru's guru, is a Parama Guru of Shankara. And this is where they say that really we credit Shankara for bringing Vedanta into the mainstream. We forget that it is really Gaudapada did that. Anyway, Karika is highly regarded. And so that's what we are studying. Okay. Then comes Vartika. So Vartika is a different animal. Vartika means, in a verse form, a bhashya in a verse form, but not conforming to the bhashya, but conforming to the text from on which bhashya was written. So, supposing there is Brihadaranyaka. In fact, Sureshwacharya is also called Vartikakara because his Vartika on Taittiriya Upanishad is highly regarded. And what Vartika does is you have Taittiriya Upanishad here, you have Bhashya on one side, and the Bhashya is a prose expanding the Taittiriya Upanishad, written by Adi Shankaracharya. A Vartika is a poetic composition that does not conform to the Bhashya, it is parallel to the Bhashya. That's called Vartika. Then you have, now this refers to all of the Vedanta texts like the Upanishads and of course Bhagavad Gita also, and Brahma Sutra. But if you have an independent work like Prakarana Grantha, like Dakshinamurti Stotram, then any commentary on that would be called just a tika. You cannot call it a bhashya because the composition itself is by Adi Shankara. So Adi Shankara cannot have a bhashya of his own. Sureshwacharya created an independent book called Manasa Ullasa.
So that's a tika.
That's a tika. But it's not a classical tika. It is also a verse form. So it is kind of like a Vartika, more like a Vartika. Yeah. But anyway, what he has done is each verse is called Ullasa. Ullasa means a concept that delights the mind. Every time you understand what the verse is saying, hopefully this is what we'll be revealing, your mind says, wow, this is very true for me. And you feel absolutely delighted. So this is called Manasa Ullasa. So in fact, he treats each of the 10 verses of the Stotram as Ullasa 1, Ullasa 2, Ullasa 3, up to Ullasa 10. That's how
So then other authors have commented or explained the Ullasa.
They may have explained
like
the Ullasa.
You were talking about
yes,
other
so
books.
this one, so for example, this is called Madhuri. So Madhuri is Swami Maheshananji's commentary on the Ullasa. Then there might have been commentaries on the Tattva Sudha. It's a multi-level tree. It's just amazing. Chalo.
So what is this Pranava Vartika?
So
It's
let
in
me see.
it's in here. This
me
book
see.
it says with Sureshwacharya's Manasullasa and Pranava Vartika.
So it is very possible that he may have. Oh, so
It's
that
in the
is
last.
that is a separate text.
Yeah.
The separate text. I have not studied that.
Okay.
So Pranava Vartika could be a Vartika on the Omkara.
Oh, okay.
It'll be interesting. I have not studied that.
Yeah,
so
because
it
it
has nothing
starts
to do
with
with.
the Om.
Yeah, exactly.
Just one more clarification. So is Bhashyam by definition a prose? Is that
Yes,
what you're saying?
yes.
All else is verses?
No, it can be otherwise, it can be also prose, but a prose written on the 10 major Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita and the Brahma Sutras are called Bhashya.
And written by
And
Shankara.
written by
So
Shankara.
there are no verses there, so he just
No
explains
verses.
everything.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Amar?
When we come to the class, is there a particular textbook that you would recommend we bring with us?
No, that's an interesting thing. So what I would say is, you should certainly be very familiar with the translation of the verse itself. You know? So that we will do. I will go through that word for word and the sentence. And you already have a copy of that. I sent it to you, you know. And then I think that it is the same as, I think that Kumud and I had composed this when Swami Tattvananda ji came. I might have changed it, but it is really compiled from this booklet that we did in 2013 when Swamiji was here. So it is that. It's very similar to also what Swami Dayanand ji had given us in
I
the year
might have a
2000.
PDF of that if anybody wants to.
Of this one?
Yeah.
Of this one?
Yeah. Because I created
what
it, so
you
I
sent
have a
also.
PDF of it.
Yeah, you sent that also, right?
Yeah, so I think
Oh,
that
you did send it.
yeah,
okay.
the verses are there.
Okay.
All there is pictures and so on and so forth. I mean, sure. Yeah.
So are you going to go on a main text of Dakshinamurti Stotram, the 10 verses?
So what I'm going to do, and this will be something new for me as well, because in the Manasa Ullasa that we did for a year, my job was to read the Manasa Ullasa and read Swami Maheshananji's commentaries and simply go on to the next one. It was relatively easy, you know. What now I have to do is to compile the concepts of the Manasa Ullasa as given by Swami Maheshananji primarily. I may consult Swami Dayanandji's notes because he never really taught it to us except for here and there, not for 6 months or so. Therefore, my main backup is Swami Maheshananji. So what my job will be to compile the Manasa Ullasa commentaries by Swami Maheshananji in a shorter form. So you don't really have a text that you can use. You just have to listen to. That's what I'm saying, listening to me and taking appropriate notes. And if you want, you can embellish it by reading. That's okay. So all of the books really are for your secondary reading. But we won't be using any one of these in the class. That's what I'm trying to convey in that sense.
So how do they play role for the Stotram's 10 verses?
No, so
So you're going to take one verse and then expand
one
on
verse and expand on it. I will go through each one of the, I'll take about 4 or 5, some I may take 5,
Okay.
some I may take 3, but
Yeah,
I want to really
yeah.
finish it in 1 year and not go off track,
Okay.
which I normally will if there was a lot of time, but I want to really keep it focused as such.
You also sent us a PDF of Swami Tattvananda ji's.
Yes,
Where does
yes.
that fit in?
Good point. So, I have not really studied it as such, but I think that because he comes from the same sampradaya as ours, Swami, because they're all, and Swami Tattvananda is very good, he understands
He's
it.
from New Jersey, right?
New Jersey,
Yeah, okay.
yeah. So, and I find really it's interesting, his description of, which I was going to do today given time, his description of the form of Dakshinamurti is lifted from this booklet.
Yeah.
And so it's not a completely independent one. It is all, but I think that because it's in a book form, you read it for yourself to see how you look at it and absorb as much detail as you have time for. Right. Any other questions on this? So have we finished all? I think we have covered all the text. So what I would do then now is to pass on this spreadsheet. Sulekha, why don't you start? And then make sure that you make any corrections to it, and then we will figure out how many books are necessary, and then just go around to the whole class. And so, okay. So the next thing, now you might say this is really the start of the class, is talk about Sri Dakshinamurti. So the word Dakshinamurti, well, first of all, even before that, Dakshinamurti is Ishvara in the form of the first teacher of a kalpa. Kalpa meaning when the cosmic day dawns. It doesn't mean the beginning of the creation. As you know very well as students, and we talked about it in the HCI class also, there is no real creation. It is simply wakening up, just like a day of a person starts. You were there before, you were then that day, you were there before that. And then before this body, you had taken up some other body. So there is no real creation for anyone. It is simply a manifestation. So when the cosmic day dawns, then the concepts of the previous kalpa, and each kalpa, by the way, is 50 million years. So the whole cosmos goes to sleep for 50 million years. We have a hard time sleeping for 7 hours, 50 million years. Then the day is equal to 50 million years. The whole day and night is 100 million years, okay, of human years. So when the cosmos begins, the first teacher is Ishvara in the form of Dakshinamurti. And everything else follows from it. My guru is Swami Dayananji, Swami Garanja's guru is Swami Pranavananda or Swami Tarananda or Swami Chinmayananda. And they have their own gurus. It goes on and on and on. The first guru is Dakshinamurti. So this is who Dakshinamurti is. Now the word Dakshinamurti has different meanings. One meaning is Dakshina means south. And so one whose form is facing south. In the traditional Vedantic sense, north represents happiness. Don't tell it to the South Indians in India. They'll rebel against it and throw it right away. South represents problems. This is the traditional spiritual thinking. And in fact, they say that really Shiva also was very fond of the Himalayas in the north of India. He was not in the south of India. So if you wanted to go meet him, you have to go to north. Anyway, that's just silliness in that sense. But really speaking, Dakshina means the south. So what it really means, which is what we should get, is the Dakshinamurti. So Murti means a form, one whose form is facing the south. What it means is that Ishvara is not shy of facing problems and protects you. Exactly like the first verse of the Bhagavad Gita, Ashocyan Anvashocastvam. So this mudra, which says, you're going to be okay. Don't worry about your life. Don't worry about problems. I will help you. So this form of the teacher. So just like Krishna is talking to Arjuna, there's Ashocyan and Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Ahantva Sarva Papebhya Ma Shuchaha. So this is the teacher which is in the form of Dakshinamurti. That really we don't know when we have problems in our life, who should we turn to? Who should we turn to? We have some friends, and friends also are very busy. And nobody has time to listen to my mother, my father, maybe, if they're there. But Dakshinamurti and Ishvara is always with me. And so here as a teacher, so here the teaching goes, that please listen to me, I will tell you, you do not have any real problems. All of your problems are perceived problems. So this is one meaning of Dakshinamurti. So he's facing problems where the students they come from their whole mindset is problems. And the Dakshinamurti says, it's okay, I'll protect you. So this is one meaning of that, okay? Then another meaning of that, the word Dakshina is called an enlightened mind. An enlightened mind, a mind who has gone through a lot of understanding, is very mature, and has the ability to stick with the truth. It's called an enlightened mind. It doesn't worry about small things here and there, let it go. But I really want to focus in on, and this is true even, for example, supposing you have a scientist who is really in the cusp of discovering some truths about life. It could be microbiology, it could be anything. He's not worried about hunger. His wife says, hey, you have not eaten anything. He says, I know. Let me finish this. So that means that an enlightened mind means he's very focused on what needs to be done. And the other things can fall off. So this is what is called Dakshina. Murti, in another etymological meaning of Sanskritam, is called truth. And so, Dakshinamurti in a second translation means the focused, enlightened mind who is able to see the truth is called Dakshinamurti. I'm reading it from Swami Dayanandaji's commentaries on this. And so, so he says, this is English, such an enlightened mind is developed by exposure to the teaching through the words of the teacher and through reflection and contemplation upon the truth. So in a way, Dakshinamurti represents your thoughts as it progresses closer to seeing the truth about yourself. This is the second one. Then Swami Dayanandaji says that the word Dakshinamurti can also be seen to be made up of two words, Dakshina and Amurti. Right? Remember that? It's so in the Sandhi, it is Dakshinamurti. So it could be Dakshinamurti, or it could be Dakshina Amurti. Two A's becomes A. Right? So the third interpretation of Dakshinamurti is, Dakshina means a skillful, competent person. Daksha. The word Daksha comes from, in fact, the word, when we have these carpenters, a skillful carpenter is called Daksha. So the etymology of the word dakshak is used in dakshina, means a very competent person. And amurti means formless. And so the Ishvara, who is formless, attributeless, in his true nature, is also the competent creator, sustainer, and dissolver of the universe through the power of Maya. And in fact, this we will study in more detail, that it is amazing how formlessness can create form. And this is a big discussion in fact, I'm reading it right now in the section whenever I can in the morning when I have time, I read the Brahma Sutras. And there, the Brahma Sutras is done in the form of vindicating and what's the English word for it? I'm getting so old, these words don't come to me anymore. Validating. It came, thank you. Vindicating and validating the concepts of Advaita Vedanta. And so there's a lot of other people who feel, hey, you guys are crazy. One of the things is, how can you have form that comes out of formlessness? It's impossible. You cannot do it. How can you create yogurt from water? You can have only if there is a milk which can create yogurt, yogurt can be created. If the samagri is not there, then you cannot do it. Formlessness has no samagri. So then the Brahma Sutra brings in all the arguments. It is possible. And one of the possibilities is, this is a magic. Do you understand magic? No. When you don't understand magic, then it looks magic. Like the Swami Maheshananji had given this example, that in fact, if for the first time, if you go to a village, now of course everybody has it, but supposing you take a transistor radio that is not connected to anything, and you go to a village and you play it, and they'll say, where's the sound coming from? You say, right here. But there's no person in it. It's magic. It's magic. So if you don't understand it, it's magic. But if you understand it, oh, it's through electromagnetic waves, then it's converted, and it's so on and so forth, then comes the sound, then it's possible. So Dakshina Amurti means a Lord. And in fact, the example is that of you and I also creating dreams from formlessness. All of a sudden, this huge tamasha becomes, and then just completely collapses. So we have that ability. And so the Dakshinamurti means Dakshina and Amurti. Finally, Dakshina also means Anukulatvam, favorable, kindly disposed. Like, when you give a Dakshina to someone, that means you are very pleased, very happy that you came, and you give a Dakshina. So the form of the Lord of Dakshinamurti is one that gives you blessings. This is the most important blessing that it can give you, which is immortality. And so that is another reason for that. Okay. Those are the meaning of the word Dakshinamurti. Okay, now let us, I still have 15 minutes, so I can go a little bit longer. And I think we can finish talking about the form of Dakshinamurti. Okay? And So the form of Dakshinamurti has some features that distinguishes it from Shiva. And what we mean by that is that supposing there is a person, okay, and you meet that person and he is going to be your teacher. It may have happened to you for the first time you meet me. I look like everybody else and so on. But so in that sense, a simple person is Shiva. But a person who has the ability to teach, that Shiva becomes Dakshinamurti. So the form of Dakshinamurti is Shiva plus a few things. What are those few things? This is what we will now going to study. Okay? And so, this is why I took off the red from it. You're able to see a little bit of this. And then as you know, for all of Swamiji's ashrams, the Vigraha is Dakshinamurti, with the exception of the one in Rishikesh, where it is Shiva. I'm not sure why it was, maybe he decided later on. And it is very unusual to have Dakshinamurti as usually you'll just have Shiva. But Swamiji felt that it is appropriate that we focus in on that aspect of Shiva who's a teacher. And that's why this is the case. And so this Vigraha is from the Sailor's Bird, and how meticulously it was designed took a long time and so superbly came out. Swamiji was very pleased with it. The most important thing of that is the smile on the face. It cannot be outright laughter. It cannot be seriousness. It is very much like, in my learning of it is, I think this is the one relates to me, is that supposing a child is having a nightmare while the child has a fever. And the mother, of course, is concerned about it, but she has a smile on her face that this nightmare is not real. It's going to soon wake up pretty soon. The same smile that Krishna has when he talks to Arjuna. The smile means it's okay. Don't get too upset. This smile was a very important part. And when Swamiji saw that, he says, I am very happy with this. Because sometimes you can have a very stern face, and so on. And so this was an important one. You cannot see all aspects of that I'm going to talk about in a minute in this one. But anyway, it is there. I have a smaller version of that, which is there here in my own home. That was given, I don't know, about 12, 15 years ago. And then the second version was given this one that we have here. So here are the features of Dakshinamurti that are not there in Shiva. Okay? So Dakshinamurti has 4 hands. Okay? So in the 4 hands, the lower hand, which is this one, is in the form of Chinmudra. And it has a mala in the hand. This is the lower hand. So Chinmudra stands for the ahankara, the jiva, which is this finger, no longer focused on Artha, Kama and Dharma, which is three fingers, but now bending over to focus on the very essence of everything, which is the thumb, which is Brahman. So Chin Mudra represents the instruction by Dakshinamurti to the student saying, you're not going to conquer samsara by continuously associating with triviality of artha, kama and dharma. Eventually, you have to go into the study of yourself, which is me. And so there needs to be an aikyam between the Jivatma and Paramatma. So this represents the Chin Mudra. So there are different mudras. I don't know, those of you that have gone to New Delhi, in there, as soon as you enter, you have these 5 mudras, you know, at the airport, yeah. So Chin Mudra is one of them. I won't go into the essence of time. I don't even know all the other mudras anyway. So so this is Chin Mudra. Then the mala represents 108 beads. And the 108 beads come from a reading of the language through which Ishvara communicates, which is Sanskritam. And Sanskritam in a particular way, and Swamiji has never explained it, and I have not really quite gone through this, in a particular way, you have 54 syllables that comprise Sanskritam. And the 108 means you know it backward and forward. That means completion of expression. There's nothing more that needs to be learned. This represents 108. So a Chin Mudra, which also has the 108 names, represents one of the 4 hands of Dakshinamurti. Okay? Then, in the upper hand, and this I will go through rather quickly, in the upper hand, he has a damaru. He has I don't know what the English word for damaru would be. Like a small drum. And the damaru represents sound, which is the essence of akasha, space. Okay? Then in the lower left hand, he has a book. For learning and teaching. Let me see. Hold on a second. There's some other things in the notes that I had. Okay, one other thing. The Chin Mudram represents the sadhya, what is to be achieved, okay, which is tattvamasi. Tattvamasi means that the ahankara and the Brahman are really to be seen to be part of the same circle, all combined together. And the 108 names represent sadhana. So the lower right hand represents both sadhya as well as sadhana. Okay, that's one thing. Then, I won't go into all the different hands, but basically, all the 5 the 5 Mahatattvas of the whole creation are given. Akasha, which is done through Damaru. Air, which is done through the locks of his hair that are flowing. In fact, the same thing is done in Nataraja. When you see Nataraja, you see that the locks are horizontal. that represents the resistance and the effect of air. So air is represented by that. Then he's holding a torch in one of the hands, which represents Agni. So now we have space, Akasha, Vayu, Agni. From the top of his hair, Ganga is flowing, which represents water. And as far as earth is concerned, there are two different views. One is that he puts in some ashes to represent the earth. Swamiji feels that his body itself represents the earth. So those are the five Pancha Mahabhutas. Okay? Pancha Mahabhutas. So Dakshinamurti has 8 angas, 8 different angas, or different elements to him. 5 are the Pancha Mahabhutas. Then comes, okay, before I complete that, one other thing. So Dakshinamurti is typically shown as Ardha Narishwara, Narishwara. So half of his, so one of his kundana is male and the other one is female. So both the Purusha and Shakti are in one. They are not two separate ones. So this is Ishvara. Then 5 elements. Then comes Surya and Chandra. And I must say, Surya and Chandra are not explained well by most people. I salute Swami Maheshananji in making it absolutely clear to me. Surya represents the effulgence which is independent of anything else. Swayambhu. Chandrama represents the reflection of the independent but also shining. So Surya can represent the Atma. And Chandrama represents the mind. And this is well known in the annals of our Shastra, that really in Purusha Sukta also, that the moon affects the mind. And more than that, it is not just the symbology of it. The fact of the matter is that the way we function, we will go into this in much more detail when we have the teaching, that really speaking, you are a combination of 2 things. Each one of us is a combination of 2 things. One is a Sakshi, and the other one is the Ahankara. The Ahankara is really the mind, the Chandrama. And as a Sakshi, it is the Surya. So the Surya and Chandra are really embellishing the Creator in that sense. So now we have 7. So there's only one more left. And Swami Dayananji was the one who explained it so well. He said, you are the 8th person. The Sakshi of when you are looking at Dakshinamurti, you complete the picture of Dakshinamurti. There is no Dakshina, in other words, look at this. There is no Dakshinamurti without you. So these are the 8 forms of Dakshinamurti. So we have completed that, and I was too ambitious in so saying that we might be able to go into the Dhyana shlokas, but as usual, I overestimated or underestimated the time. So we will do the prayers and also then go into the dhyana shlokas from next time. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tapaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityo Ma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. So one thing that I think I told you about is that I have a 11-day trip to India starting on the 9th, and so I will miss two Tuesdays before we resume the class. And so I was thinking that after going into the meanings of the dhyana shlokas, one of the things that Narayan had asked me to do when we were thinking of doing, he says, you know, I would like to have an overview of all the 10 verses. You remember that?
Yes.
Good. I hope that you do. Don't say things to me because I have to take it seriously. So be careful about what you ask for it, because you may get it. So I think that's a good idea. But unfortunately, I won't be able to do it before I go to India. So I might take a crack at it. If the dhyana shlokas don't take as much time as things did today, then I might start on it. But certainly the first real class on Dakshinamurti Stotram will be when I give you a quick overview of all the 10 verses, of what they mean and so on and so forth, so you have a kind of like a view of where you're going. And then we will start with the first verse itself. So that's my plan to do. So I was hoping to do that before I go to India, but I may not be able to finish it, that's all. Any other questions that you have or anything?
So we have class next week?
Next week we'll have a class, yes. Then no classes. So there's 3 reasons for my going to India. One is that there is a wedding of my wife's side in Firozpur, Punjab, and the whole family is going. It's a huge, my sons, granddaughters, everybody, my wife's side. So 3 days in Firozpur. Then I have an older sister, very dear to me, and our parents are of course gone, so she and my brother are the only one left, and so 4 days with her in New Delhi, and then 3 days in Madhya Pradesh, inaugurating the school and the project, the Chhatralaya project in Padali that the Kishores have done, and both of them cannot go, so they asked me to go instead. So I will be there. Sheila Balaji will also be there. So we will do a 2-day Griha Pravesha and also visit some of the local temples. And so then I'll be back on in time for the Saturday class following that. So that's the one. That's the plan for it. Any other points? I'm very happy that you all came today, and I look forward to continuing the class with you. Hari Om. Thank you.
I remember somehow that the upper smara is the.
I didn't go up to it. I should do that.
And then you said the manaha or the ego is represented by the
Remember that? Right.